There's a lot of young players that are breaking out right now. Franz Wagner, Jalen Williams, Bilal Koulibaly, Jared McCain. But on the other hand, there have been some young players that have been the opposite this year and have been disappointing. So today, I want to talk about the young players that I had very high expectations for going into this season that I think have been disappointing so far. And these are going to be players that are still on their rookie contracts technically, so it could be from the 21, 2, 3, or 2024 draft class. So the first player I want to talk about is somebody that I loved going into the 2022 draft class, and that is going to be Jabari Smith Jr. It's funny because going into that draft class, we had no idea who was going to be the number 1 overall pick. It swapped from Jabari to Paolo Banchero on draft night, and it looks like the Orlando Magic made the right decision. Jabari Smith Jr., though, was dealt a bad hand right away. He was under Steven Silas as a head coach in his rookie season. That team was just an absolute disaster. It had no leadership. It barely had any chemistry. It was a mess. Last year, under Ime Udoka, you saw the flashes for Jabari Smith in year number 2. And what we saw at Auburn, it always was going to take a little bit of time for Jabari Smith Jr. to develop. Now, I just don't know if it's going to happen in Houston. So far this year, Jabari Smith Jr. is averaging 11.5 points, 6.5 rebounds. He's shooting 42% from the field, 31% from 3. He's averaging just 0.4 steals and 0.4 blocks a night for a big man that is playing 28 minutes a night, which is also a career low for Jabari Smith. He's shooting just 34% on catch and shoot threes, 11% from 3 on pull-up threes, and his mid-range game also hasn't been great this year either. And I still have a lot of stock in Jabari Smith Jr. I still think he could be this versatile big that could space the floor. Like I said, though, I don't know if it's going to happen in Houston because the number 1 and number 2 options, you got Şengün and Jalen Green, are also incredibly young on that team. You have Fred VanVleet getting a lot of reps right now. Amen Thompson and Tari Eason look like they need to be in their long-term plans for what they could do defensively. And I just have a feeling that Jabari Smith is going to be the odd man out, especially if Houston wants to make a big trade eventually and he could headline a package. He has been a little bit better as of late, which is encouraging to see. Had a good game against the Indiana Pacers and a good game against the LA Clippers, where he dropped 20 plus points in both those games and over 60% shooting. And you see the flashes in Jabari Smith. We just haven't really seen that consistency with him. And I know they're not trading for Giannis or anybody like that now, but if they wanted to add a really good player at the deadline, would he be somebody that could go? That'd be better for his career just to have a new change of scenery. The next player I want to talk about is Scoot Henderson, a player I loved going into the 2023 draft class. He was my number 2 player over Brandon Miller going into that draft, and he has had not an encouraging year number 2. Now, I went a lot in depth on my Just Ballin' channel where I made a whole video dedicated to Scoot Henderson and what we've seen this year. Am I out on him in the long term? And Scoot this year, I think, has taken marginal steps, but not as big of a leap as you would like to see, at least through the first 15 games this year. He's currently nursing a thigh injury, and he did suffer some injuries last year. Scoot Henderson this year is averaging 11 points a night, 5 assists. He's shooting 40% from the field, which is up from 38% last year, but his 3-point percentage has dropped. He didn't get off to a great start last year in his rookie season with his 3-point shot, but it really came alive in the final few months. But this year, he's shooting just 28% on threes. He's still a good free throw shooter, but he is getting to the free throw line a little bit less, which is also alarming. He has been better on defense, in my opinion, and he's shooting just 15% on pull-up threes, but 39% on catch and shoot threes. He has been better on the defensive side of the floor, in my opinion, but the Blazers are better when he is off the floor statistically. So it's not been the year 2 leap that you would like to see from Scoot Henderson. I think he has taken steps in certain places, but overall for the draft pedigree he had, and I know he had super high expectations to be the next great guard for this team in the post Damian Lillard era, it's just not with this version of the Blazers team right now, and I don't know how much it's going to change throughout the course of the season. So I think Scoot Henderson and Jabari Smith Jr. have been disappointing with their play so far. This player I'm going to talk about hasn't played a game this season, but that's why I think it's disappointing, because he has struggled to stay healthy in all 3 years of his career, and that's Mark Williams of the Charlotte Hornets. Mark Williams didn't play a ton to start off his career, but he ended up playing 43 games in his rookie year, dealt with some injuries during that time as well. But in year number 2, after a strong finish to his rookie season, he just played 19 games as a sophomore. Now, those were really good 19 games where in 26 minutes, he averaged 13 points, 10 rebounds, and shot 64% from the field. Looked like he could be a legitimate rim protector for this Hornets team for a long time. But this year, he's still yet to play a game with a foot injury. And now maybe the Hornets are being cautious with Mark Williams because they want him to be fully healthy. And we've seen players struggle to stay healthy in the first few years, and then those are behind them and they're healthy throughout the rest of their careers. And I'm hoping that's the case with Mark Williams. I just think it's been disappointing that we have struggled to see him play consistently in the first 3 years of his career. I love this player's rookie season, and there was a reason why they didn't want to trade him in the offseason in a Lowry marketing trade or any trade in general, and that's Brandon Podziemski of the Golden State Warriors, but he is in the middle of that sophomore slump. Last year, Podziemski was great in his rookie season, over 9 points a night, 6 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and was a positive shooter. This year, it's been the opposite. He's shooting just 37% from the field, 18% from 3 on a little bit more volume from downtown than we saw last year. He is still not a good free throw shooter, and he's averaging less assists per game, less rebounds per game, and is averaging 7.7 points per game as well. His true shooting percentage this year is 43%, which is in the bottom 13th percentile in the NBA. Now, I do think he impacts the game in other ways as well. I think he's an active player in transition. He's a good defender, and I think he gives 110% and can make winning plays that isn't just putting the ball in the hoop. But the expectations we had for Podziemski going into year number 2 were so high on what he could be to replace Klay Thompson in a way, and the player he could complement Steph Curry in that backcourt, both defensively and offensively. Yeah, it just hasn't been the Podziemski that I expected. I don't know if you guys had these high expectations for Pod. We'll just stay on Golden State because I think Jonathan Kuminga has also been disappointing. The first 2021 draft class player we'll talk about, he is fighting for that next contract. The Warriors didn't give it to him in the offseason. He was floated around in trade rumors a little bit, but with the Warriors performing so well this year, it's crazy that their two young players, Kuminga and Podziemski, that they could potentially build around are not really main reasons why the Warriors have been good this year, as Jonathan Kuminga so far through 15 games is averaging 13 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. The field goal percentage has dropped from last year at 52% to this year at 44%. The 3-point percentage is down. The free throw percentage is cratering, and he's averaging less points, rebounds, and assists from his breakout 2024 season. He's shooting just 16% on pull-up threes, 31% on pull-up twos, and it just does not feel like Kuminga is going to operate well or to his highest potential in this Golden State Warriors offense, which is very unorthodox compared to some other teams. And for Kuminga to reach his highest potential, I think it may be better that there's going to be a change of scenery down the line. Like Pods, a lot of people were quick to put Jaime Jaquez in a top 5 in a 2023 redraft. And when I made my 2023 redraft at the end of last year's season on this channel, a lot of you guys were upset with me not putting Jaquez in the top 10 because I mentioned that Jaquez was 23 years old last year. He's going to be 24 years old at the end of this NBA season. Some of the other players in this draft class are going to be 20 or 21 at the end of the year. So this is pretty much what Jaime is going to be throughout his career, and his numbers are pretty much down from last year's season. He's averaging just 9 points per game, down from 12 points per game last year. The rebounds are up, the assists are up, the 3-point percentage is up, but the field goal percentage is down. It's basically swapped because he was good from 2 last year, but not great from 3. And this year, he's much better from 3 and a lot worse from 2 this year. He's shooting just 45% within 10 feet, which is not very good in this league. And I don't think Jaime Jaquez is a great defender either. So maybe when the shots start falling at the rim, he's going to be a lot more productive of a player. But I think Jaquez is not reaching that leap that we thought he could take after last year, because it did look very polished in the first half, slowed down a little bit in the second half, and is looking a lot more like he did in the second half last year than the first. I'm a massive fan of Jalen Duren. He was one of the youngest players in that 2022 draft, but I think this year he's not taking that year 3 jump when a lot of players around him are. And the Pistons have been better defensively this year under JP Bickerstaff. I'm going to give him a mulligan last year because he wasn't great defensively, but nobody was under Monty Williams. It was a disaster. This year, though, I don't think Duren has really progressed on either side of the floor. The Pistons are a lot better defensively and as a team overall when he is off the floor. His minutes have dropped by 5 per night. Isaiah Stewart, I think, has been better than Duren this year. His points have dropped from 13.8 to 8.8 this year, and he's still pretty much a one-dimensional big inside. I like his playmaking ability, and I think he's still insanely athletic. I just want to see that defensive leap, which we haven't seen in year 3. The next player we're going to talk about, still on his rookie deal, technically making $2 million this year, but he's going to be making $18 million next year, $19 million in 2027, and $20 million in 2028, and that is the 31st pick from the 2022 draft, Andrewnard. Now, Andrewnard hasn't played in a little bit due to a knee injury. He only appeared in 7 games so far this year, where he shot 38% from the field, 23% from 3, and averaged 7 points per game. But that is not what we expected out of the gate after the playoff run that Nembhard had last year in the conference finals against the Boston Celtics. When Halliburton was out, Nembhard went off for 21, 8, and 4 every single night. He was an elite 3-point shooter as well, and even hit a massive game-winning shot against the Knicks in the Eastern Conference semifinals. Now, I wonder how Nembhard is going to be when teams know how to guard him, how to defend him. How is he going to be in maybe a slowed down offense compared to at times last year? I mean, the Indiana Pacers have had their own issues with Tyrese Halliburton this year, so maybe they just got issues to figure out in that backcourt. And I'm not going to be too concerned about Nembhard, but he is 24 years old. Just something to keep an eye on. So Josh Giddy was traded last offseason to the Chicago Bulls from the Oklahoma City Thunder. We all know why they did it, but this was going to be a fresh start and a change of scenery for Josh Giddy to go back to what he was in that 2022 season and 2023 season with the Thunder, this year for the Bulls. I don't really think he's taken that step this year. And like Jonathan Kuminga, he is a restricted free agent at the end of this year. He's one of the few rookies in the top 10 last year that didn't get a contract extension in the offseason. He was one of the few top 10 picks from the 2021 draft that didn't get a contract extension in last year's offseason. This year, Josh Giddy is averaging 12 points, 6 rebounds, and 6.5 assists. He got off to a really hot start with his 3-point shot, but it is coming back down to earth. He's shooting 42% from the field, 35% from 3, and just 68% from the line. He's shooting just 46% within 10 feet as well, which is not what you like to see from a guard of his size at 6'8". And the Chicago Bulls are a lot better when he is not in the game. They are not a good defensive team when he is on the floor because Josh Giddy has not been a good defender this year. I don't think he's earned himself any money so far in Chicago, and it's been disappointing because I always thought Josh Giddy was going to be a really safe player in this league after what we saw in year number 2, but it's just been the opposite. And the last player I'm going to talk about is going to be Max Christie of the LA Lakers. He was the 35th overall pick in that 2022 draft. He got extended by the Lakers in the offseason, and he showed flashes this year, especially in that game against the San Antonio Spurs, but I think he struggled to break out this year. Now, we're still just 14 games in, and that time can come. He can go on somewhat of a run, and he's still just 21 years old. But Max Christie so far in about 16 minutes tonight is shooting 36% from the field, 25% from 3, and is averaging 4 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 assist a night. And I don't think Christie has done a good job defensively this year either, which is maybe going to make the Lakers regret extending him. Like I said, he's 21 years old. He could definitely turn it around this year. I was just a big fan of Max Christie coming out of Michigan State, and he hasn't lived up to my expectations that I thought he could be so far. So that is going to be it for me. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of these disappointing young players that I talked about. And do you think any of these guys need to change of scenery, or are you just out on them altogether? Let me know down below. Like I said, drop a thumbs up if you guys did enjoy this video. Subscribe for more videos like this all year long, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.